The lawyer's hands trembled as he slid the document across the mahogany table. $10 million. That's what the number read. Maya Sterling sat across from him in the ornate office of her late father's estate, her dark eyes fixed on the papers. Her jaw set in a way that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Her father, Marcus Sterling, tech mogul and self-made billionaire, had been dead for exactly 72 hours. The funeral had ended just 3 hours ago. And now, here she was, being offered more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. The lawyer cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses nervously as he watched her face for any sign of emotion. Maya's younger brother, Tyler, leaned forward from his seat beside her, his eyes wide with anticipation. Their mother, Catherine, sat at the head of the table, her face a mask of composure despite the grief that hung heavy in her eyes. The room smelled of old books and expensive cologne, the kind of smell that spoke of power and legacy. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Chicago skyline glittered in the afternoon sun, a testament to the empire Marcus Sterling had built from nothing. Maya reached for the pen the lawyer had placed beside the document. Everyone exhaled. This was it, the formality before the fortune changed hands. But then Maya did something that would change everything. She set the pen down without signing. She pushed the document back across the table, and she said 5 words that sent shockwaves through the room. I don't want his money. To understand why Maya Sterling would walk away from $10 million, you have to understand who Marcus Sterling was, and more importantly, who he wasn't. Marcus Sterling's story was the kind that got written about in business magazines and taught in entrepreneurship classes. Born in the south side of Chicago to a single mother who worked 3 jobs, Marcus had grown up in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong. His mother, Gloria, had raised him in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment that always smelled like the soul food she cooked for other families to make extra money. She used to tell young Marcus that he was going to be somebody, that their circumstances were temporary, that his mind was the key to a different life. And Marcus believed her. He devoured books the way other kids devoured candy. While his friends were on the corners, Marcus was in the library. While others dropped out of school, Marcus graduated top of his class. He got a full scholarship to MIT, where he studied computer science and began to see the world differently. The internet was just beginning to bloom, and Marcus saw opportunity everywhere he looked. By the time he was 25, he had developed a software platform that revolutionized how small businesses manage their inventory and supply chains. By 30, he had sold that company for $40 million. By 35, he had started 3 more companies, each more successful than the last. By the time he was 45, Marcus Sterling was worth over $2 billion. He was featured on the cover of Forbes. He gave speeches at tech conferences. He was invited to the White House. He became exactly what his mother had envisioned. Somebody who mattered, somebody who had escaped the gravity of poverty and made something of himself. He married Catherine Wright, a beautiful attorney. He met at a charity gala, and together they had 2 children. Tyler, their son, came first, followed 3 years later by Maya. They lived in a mansion in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's most affluent neighborhoods, with more rooms than they could use and a staff that kept everything running smoothly. From the outside, Marcus Sterling had achieved the American dream in its purest form. But inside the walls of that mansion, a different story was unfolding. Maya grew up in a world of abundance, but she barely knew the man who provided it. Marcus was always traveling, always in meetings, always building the next venture. When Maya was 6 years old, she performed in her first school play. She was a tree in the background, barely visible, with no lines. But to her, it was the most important thing in the world. She had practiced standing perfectly still, holding her arms up like branches, for weeks. She begged her father to come. Marcus said he would try. The night of performance, Maya stood backstage in her brown costume with paper leaves taped to her arms, scanning the audience for her father's face. She saw her mother in the 3rd row. She saw Tyler sitting next to her, bored and fidgeting. But Marcus's seat remained empty. He called afterward to apologize. Something had come up, an important investor meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. He promised to make it up to her. Maya was too young to understand that this would become the pattern of her entire childhood. When she turned 10, Marcus missed her birthday party because he was in Silicon Valley. When she won the science fair at age 12, Marcus was in Tokyo. When she got accepted into her first-choice high school, Marcus was in London. He sent gifts, expensive ones. Designer clothes, the latest gadgets, jewelry she was too young to appreciate. But Maya didn't want things. She wanted her father. Tyler seemed to handle it better, or at least he pretended to. He threw himself into sports, became the star of his basketball team, made friends easily. He learned to fill the void with noise and activity. But Maya was different. She was quieter, more introspective. She felt the absence like a constant ache. Catherine did her best. She was at every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every moment that mattered. But even she couldn't hide her own loneliness. Maya would sometimes hear her mother crying softly in her bedroom late at night when Marcus had canceled another trip home. As Maya grew older, she began to understand something that troubled her deeply. Her father's success story, the one celebrated in magazines and documentaries, had a cost, and she and her family were paying it. The real breaking point came when Maya was 16. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Maya was in her room working on a project for her social studies class about income inequality in America. She had spent weeks researching, interviewing people, gathering data. The project had opened her eyes to realities she had been sheltered from despite her father's own origins. She was reading an article about the South Side neighborhood where her father had grown up when she heard shouting downstairs. Her parents were arguing, which was rare. Catherine usually kept her frustrations private, but this time the volume had risen past the point of discretion. Maya crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "He's your son, Marcus. He needs you, not your money, you." That was her mother's voice, strained with emotion. "I'm providing everything for this family, everything they could possibly need." Marcus sounded defensive, tired. "Everything except yourself. Tyler got suspended from school this week. Did you even know that? He got into a fight. He's acting out because he's angry. He's angry that his father is never here. I'm building something that will last beyond my lifetime. I'm creating generational wealth. They'll understand when they're older. Generational wealth means nothing if there's no family left to share it with." There was a long silence. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice cold in a way that made Maya's skin prickle. "My mother worked herself to death, so I could have opportunities. I'm making sure our kids never have to struggle the way we did. If they can't appreciate that, that's not my problem." Maya heard footsteps. She scrambled back to her room just as her father's footsteps pounded up the stairs and past her door. A few minutes later, she heard the front door slam. From her window, she watched her father's black Mercedes pull out of the driveway. He didn't come home for 6 days. That was the moment Maya started to see her father clearly, not as a hero in a rags-to-riches story, but as a man who had let his pursuit of success consume everything else. A man who had confused providing with parenting. A man who was so afraid of returning to poverty that he couldn't stop running toward wealth long enough to notice what he was leaving behind. By the time Maya graduated high school, the distance between her and her father had become a chasm. She went to college at Northwestern, studying sociology and community development. While her classmates partied and enjoyed the typical college experience, Maya spent her weekends volunteering at community centers in underserved neighborhoods. She tutored kids who reminded her of what her father must have been like at their age, hungry for knowledge, desperate for opportunity. She worked with single mothers who juggled multiple jobs, just like her grandmother Gloria had done. She saw firsthand how the cycle of poverty trapped people, how it took more than individual ambition to break free. It required systems of support, community investment, and people who cared enough to stay and help rather than leave as soon as they made it out. She began to question everything about her father's philosophy. Yes, he had succeeded. Yes, he had escaped poverty. But what about everyone he left behind? What about the neighborhood that raised him? What about using his resources to create ladders for others instead of just celebrating his own climb? During her sophomore year, Maya attended a guest lecture given by her father at the business school. She sat in the back of the auditorium, watching him command the stage with his charisma and confidence. He told his story with practiced polish. hitting all the beats that made audiences applaud. The struggle, the sacrifice, the breakthrough, the triumph. He talked about the importance of persistence, of vision, of never accepting limitations. During the Q&A session, Maya raised her hand. Marcus didn't recognize her, at first in the sea of faces. Yes, young lady in the back? Mr. Sterling, you talk a lot about your success and your journey, but you rarely mention the community you came from. Have you invested any of your wealth back into the South Side? Have you created programs to help others escape poverty the way you did? There was a murmur through the crowd. Marcus squinted toward the back, recognition finally dawning on his face. His jaw tightened slightly. That's a fair question. I donate to various charities and causes. I believe in teaching people to fish rather than giving them fish. Success comes from individual drive and determination. But individual drive isn't enough when schools are underfunded, when kids don't have access to books or technology, when their parents are working so many jobs they can't be home to support them. You had your mother supporting you, pushing you. What about the kids who don't have that? Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. I believe everyone has the same opportunities one had. It's about what you do with them. That's not true, though, is it? You had opportunities because you were exceptional, but also lucky. What about the kids who are just as smart but aren't lucky? Don't they deserve help? The room had gone completely silent. Everyone could sense the tension, though most didn't realize they were watching a father and daughter in conflict. I think we're getting off topic, Marcus said smoothly. Next question. That night, Marcus called Maya for the first time in months. What the hell was that today? That was me asking you a question you should be able to answer. You embarrassed me in front of hundreds of people. I asked you about your responsibility to the community that raised you. If that embarrassed you, maybe you should think about why. I don't need a lecture from my 20-year-old daughter about responsibility. You've never worked for anything in your life. Everything you have, I provided. That's exactly the problem, Dad. You think providing things is the same as being present. You think money solves everything. But it doesn't. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was tired. You don't understand the world yet, Maya. You will when you're older. I understand that you're not the man Grandma Gloria wanted you to be. The line went dead. They didn't speak for 8 months after that. The relationship between Maya and her father remained fractured through the rest of her college years. She graduated with honors and turned down multiple offers to work at prestigious consulting firms and nonprofits. Instead, she did something that horrified her father. She moved back to the South Side, into a modest apartment in the same neighborhood where Marcus had grown up. She got a job at a community center, making barely enough to cover her rent and student loans. Catherine tried to convince her to reconsider, offering to help her find something safer, something with better prospects. But Maya was determined. She wanted to understand the world her father had come from, the world he had spent his whole life running away from. The neighborhood had changed since Marcus's childhood, but not in the ways that mattered. There was a new development here, a renovated building there, but the poverty remained. The lack of opportunity remained. The cycles of struggle that trapped generation after generation remained. Maya threw herself into the work. She ran after-school programs for kids, helping them with homework, exposing them to possibilities they didn't know existed. She organized job training workshops for adults. She started a community garden that taught urban farming and provided fresh vegetables in a food desert. She learned everyone's names, their stories, their dreams. Marcus hated it. He would call Catherine in distress, unable to understand why his daughter was living in poverty when she could have anything she wanted. She's trying to prove a point, Catherine would tell him. Maybe you should listen to what that point is. She's wasting her potential. She could be making 6 figures by now. Instead, she's living in a dangerous neighborhood, making $28,000 a year. She's happy, Marcus. When's the last time you could say that about yourself? He didn't have an answer to that. Tyler, meanwhile, had gone in the opposite direction. He joined Marcus's company after college, dove into the business world with enthusiasm, and seemed to be following in his father's footsteps. Marcus was proud, finally having the heir he had always wanted. But even Tyler could see the toll the work took. He watched his father cancel dinners, miss holidays, prioritize deals over relationships. And sometimes, late at night after particularly long days, Tyler wondered if Maya had been right all along. 2 years into Maya's work at the community center, something happened that would change everything. A 15-year-old kid named Dante started showing up to the after-school program. He was brilliant, the kind of smart that reminded Maya of a young Marcus Sterling from all the stories. But Dante was also angry, getting into fights, failing classes despite his intelligence. Maya took an interest in him. She started staying late to help him with his homework, to talk to him about what was going on. Slowly, Dante opened up. His father was in prison. His mother worked 2 jobs and was barely home. His older brother had been killed in gang violence 2 years earlier. Dante was drowning in grief and rage with no one to help him process it. Maya became that person. She helped him catch up in school. She exposed him to coding and technology, watching his eyes light up the same way Marcus's must have decades ago. She helped him apply for scholarships, write essays, dream bigger than his circumstances. By his senior year, Dante had transformed. He was at the top of his class. He had been accepted to several colleges with full scholarships. He had a future that seemed bright and full of possibility. Maya was so proud she could barely contain it. She called her father for the first time in over a year to tell him about Dante. "Dad, you have to meet this kid. He reminds me of you. He's brilliant, and with the right support, he could do anything." Marcus was skeptical, but agreed to meet Dante. When he did, something shifted in him. He saw himself in this young man, saw the potential, the hunger, the intelligence. For a brief moment, the walls came down. "What do you want to do, son?" Marcus asked Dante. "I want to build things. Software, apps, platforms that solve problems. I want to do what you did." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised everyone. "Come work for me this summer. Internship. Paid. I'll teach you everything I know." Dante's face lit up. Maya felt a surge of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of her father understanding what really mattered. Maybe helping Dante would remind Marcus why he had worked so hard in the first place. The summer internship was a success. Dante flourished in the tech environment. Marcus became something of a mentor to him, spending more time with this young man than he had spent with his own children in years. Maya tried not to feel jealous. This was good. This was what she wanted. Her father using his success to lift someone else up. But then August came, and Dante was supposed to leave for college. He had been accepted to MIT, the same school Marcus had attended. Full scholarship, a chance to escape the neighborhood and build the future he deserved. 3 days before he was supposed to leave, Dante was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting. He had been walking home from the community center, excited about college, about his future, about finally getting out. Wrong place, wrong time. Senseless violence that stole a brilliant life. Maya got the call at 2 in the morning. She screamed so loud her neighbors came running. She went to the hospital, but it was too late. Dante was gone. All that potential, all that promise, erased in seconds. The funeral was held on what should have been Dante's moving day at MIT. Maya stood in the church, surrounded by everyone who had loved this remarkable young man, and felt something break inside her. Marcus came to the funeral. He sat in the back, his face carved from stone. After the service, Maya found him sitting in his car in the parking lot, staring straight ahead. She got in the passenger seat without saying anything. They sat in silence for 10 minutes. Then Marcus spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought if he worked hard enough, if he was smart enough, if he did everything right, he would make it out, like I did." "He did do everything right," Maya said, "and it wasn't enough. That's the point I've been trying to make. Individual success stories are great, but they don't change systems. They don't make neighborhoods safer. They don't give every kid the same chance Dante had. You got out, but what about everyone else? What was I supposed to do? Stay there and drown with everyone else? No, you were supposed to get out and then reach back. You were supposed to use your success to create change, not just celebrate that you escaped." Marcus turned to look at his daughter, really look at her for the first time in years. He reminded me of you, stubborn, idealistic, certain that the world could be better. The world can be better. You have the resources to make it better. But instead, you just keep accumulating more wealth, while neighborhoods like this one stay broken. I donate millions to charity. Writing checks isn't the same as caring. It's not the same as showing up. It's not the same as actually giving a damn about the people you claim to be helping. Marcus looked away. You sound like your grandmother. Good. She was a better person than either of us. They didn't speak again for months. Dante's death changed Maya in fundamental ways. She became even more committed to her work, even more determined to create systemic change rather than just helping individuals. She started organizing community meetings, pushing for policy changes, demanding more resources for schools and safety programs. She became a voice for the neighborhood, speaking at city council meetings, writing op-eds, refusing to let Dante's death be just another statistic. She also started a foundation in Dante's name, using what little money she had saved to create a scholarship fund for kids from the neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus watched all of this from a distance. He read her op-eds. He saw her speaking on local news. He heard about the foundation, and something in him began to shift. He started thinking about his own legacy, about what he would leave behind when he was gone. Not just money, but meaning, not just wealth, but impact. He started, for the first time in decades, to question whether he had been running toward the right goals. But he didn't know how to bridge the gap with his daughter. Too many years, too many missed moments, too many arguments stood between them. He told himself there would be time. There would be opportunities to make things right, to show Maya that he understood, that he was trying to change. He didn't know how little time he actually had. Marcus Sterling had his first heart attack at age 58. He survived, spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and was told to slow down, reduce stress, take care of himself. He was back at work within a month, pushing harder than ever. The second heart attack came a year later. This one was massive, catastrophic. By the time the ambulance got him to the hospital, it was too late. Marcus Sterling, self-made billionaire tech mogul, the man who had escaped poverty and built an empire, died at age 59 surrounded by doctors and machines, but without his family by his side. They had been on their way. Catherine had gotten the call first and immediately contacted Maya and Tyler. But Chicago traffic and the cruelty of timing meant they arrived 15 minutes too late. Maya stood in the hospital corridor, staring at the room where her father's body lay, and felt a complicated grief that threatened to swallow her whole. She mourned the father she had had, the man who provided everything material she could need. But she also mourned the father she had never gotten, the man who might have understood what really mattered before it was too late. The funeral was enormous. Hundreds of people came to pay respects to Marcus Sterling. Business leaders, politicians, former colleagues, people whose lives had been touched by his companies, if not by the man himself. They told stories about his brilliance, his vision, his determination. Maya listened to them eulogize a man she barely recognized. Tyler gave a eulogy that was polished and appropriate, talking about their father's legacy and success. When he finished, Maya stood up. She hadn't planned to speak, but something compelled her forward. She stood at the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. "My father was a remarkable man," she began, "but not for the reasons most of you think. He was remarkable because he never forgot where he came from, even though he spent his whole life running from it. He was remarkable because he cared so deeply about not being poor again that he forgot to be rich in the ways that matter. He was remarkable because he had the capacity for so much good, and he used only a fraction of it." The room had gone very quiet. My father helped change one life this past year, a young man named Dante who reminded him of himself. And when Dante died, I think my father finally understood what I had been trying to tell him for years. That individual success stories are wonderful, but they're not enough. That having wealth means having responsibility. That getting out only matters if you reach back. She paused, her voice breaking slightly. I love my father, but I wish he had loved us, his family and his community, more than he loved his success. I wish he had understood that before he ran out of time. She walked back to her seat. Catherine squeezed her hand. Tyler looked like he might cry. And 3 days later, they all sat in the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Which brings us back to that moment, to Maya pushing the document back across the table, to her refusing $10 million. I don't want his money. The lawyer blinked. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I don't want his money. I'm refusing the inheritance. Tyler leaned forward. Maya, what are you doing? I'm making a choice. The same choice I've been making for years. I don't want money that was accumulated while my father ignored his family and his responsibility to the community that raised him. Catherine spoke carefully. Maya, honey, I understand you're upset, but this is a lot of money. You don't have to decide right now. I'm not upset. I'm clear. For the first time in a long time, I'm completely clear. The lawyer shuffled his papers nervously. Ms. Sterling, perhaps you should take some time to think about this. $10 million could do a lot of good. That's exactly right, Maya said. It could do a lot of good, but not in my personal bank account. She turned to the lawyer. Is there a way to redirect my inheritance? Instead of it coming to me, could it be used to establish a foundation? A real foundation, not just a tax write-off. One that invests in the South Side and neighborhoods like it. One that creates programs, funds schools, supports families. One that does what my father should have been doing all along. The lawyer looked shocked. That's highly unusual, but yes, it could be structured that way. Then that's what I want. Take my $10 million and use it to actually help people. Use it the way Grandma Gloria would have wanted it used. Use it to create the ladders my father climbed but forgot to build for others. Tyler stared at his sister. Maya, that's insane. Do you know how rare this kind of money is? Do you know what you could do with it? Yeah, I do. And I know what it can't do. It can't bring Dad back. It can't give me the childhood I deserved. It can't make him care about the things that actually matter. But it can honor Dante's memory. It can help other kids like him. It can actually create change instead of just accumulating in an account. Catherine had tears in her eyes. Your father would be furious. My father was always furious with me. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. What I care about is not becoming like him. I care about breaking the cycle. I care about using resources to help people instead of just having resources. The lawyer cleared his throat. If you're serious about this, we'll need to draw up new paperwork. This will take some time to structure properly. I'm serious. More serious than I've ever been about anything. Tyler sat back in his chair, looking at his sister like he was seeing her for the first time. You're really going to do this? I already did. Over the next few weeks, as the lawyers worked on restructuring Maya's inheritance into a foundation, something unexpected happened. The story leaked. Someone in the lawyer's office told someone else, and soon the media got hold of it. Headlines appeared. Heiress refuses $10 million inheritance. Marcus Sterling's daughter rejects fortune to help community. What makes someone say no to millions? Maya was suddenly thrust into the spotlight she had never wanted. Reporters called her. News outlets requested interviews. Social media exploded with opinions. Some people called her stupid, said she was crazy to turn down that much money. Others called her inspiring, a voice of principle in a world obsessed with wealth. Economic think tanks wanted to analyze her decision. Philosophers wanted to debate its implications. But Maya just kept going to work at the community center. She showed up with the kids, ran the programs, did the job she'd been doing all along. The foundation was officially established 6 weeks after the will reading. The Sterling Community Investment Foundation, with $10 million in initial funding and a mission to create systemic change in underserved neighborhoods, starting with Chicago's South Side. Maya served on the board but refused to take a salary. The foundation began its work immediately. It partnered with schools to provide technology and resources. It created job training programs. It funded small business development. It invested in community safety initiatives. It did everything Maya had been advocating for, but now with actual resources behind the vision. Tyler watched all of this unfold, and something shifted in him too. 3 months after the will reading, He came to Maya's apartment unannounced. "I want to help," he said simply, "with a foundation, with the work you're doing. I've been thinking about what you said at Dad's funeral, about individual success not being enough. I want to do something that matters." Maya looked at her brother, seeing the same doubt and searching she felt years ago. "It's not glamorous work. I don't want glamorous. I want meaningful. I spent the last few years becoming Dad. I don't want to die like him, surrounded by success, but empty of purpose." They worked together on the foundation. Tyler brought business expertise and connections. Maya brought grassroots knowledge and community trust. Together, they built something that began to create real change. Catherine joined them eventually, using her legal expertise to navigate policy and advocate for systemic reforms. The three of them, bound together by loss and purpose, became the family Marcus had never quite managed to create. A year after Marcus's death, the foundation had expanded to serve 3 neighborhoods. 2 years after, it had helped create job opportunities for over 500 people and provided educational support for over 2,000 kids. 5 years after, it had become a model for community investment, studied by other organizations trying to create similar impact. And Maya, the woman who had refused $10 million, continued to live in her modest apartment in the South Side. She never regretted her decision, not even for a moment, because she had understood something her father never had. Wealth isn't measured in dollars. Legacy isn't measured in business success. What matters is how you use what you have to lift others up, how you show up for the people who need you, how you choose connection over accumulation. Marcus Sterling built an empire, but Maya Sterling built something better. She built a community. She built a future. She built a legacy of care instead of a legacy of cash. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do with money is refuse to let it define you. Sometimes, the bravest choice is to walk away from everything society tells you to want in favor of everything your soul knows you need. Maya Sterling understood that, and in understanding it, she became richer than her father ever was. Not in money, but in meaning. Not in success, but in significance. Not in what she had, but in what she gave. The lawyer was right about one thing. $10 million could do a lot of good, and in Maya's hands, channeled through her vision and values rather than her bank account, it did exactly that. Her father's money, refused by his daughter and redirected to his community, finally came home. Just like Marcus Sterling had once come home from MIT, full of dreams and determination. Except this time, the success didn't just lift one person out of poverty. It created pathways for hundreds, then thousands. This time, nobody got left behind. And somewhere, maybe, Gloria Sterling smiled. Because this was what she had really wanted when she told her young son he was going to be somebody. Not just somebody successful. Somebody good. Maya had refused her father's money, but she had accepted his mother's legacy. And that made all the difference.